We had some news out of Michigan State today. News we had all kind of been expecting. Michigan State announced that they are firing Mel Tucker with cause today. We were all expecting this. Mel Tucker had been suspended. All the reports have suggested that he was going to be fired, and Michigan State made that official. What that means is we now have an opening in the Big Ten. And Michigan State, if they're firing him with cause, that frees up some funds because they would have owed him almost $100 million based off his contract. So let's take a look at some candidates that Michigan State might target now that they have an opening. First guy here on this list is Jason Candle. Jason Candle is the current head coach for the Toledo Rockets. He's 43 years old, already has 8 years of coaching experience, and has finished at least 500 in every season. He also has 2 MAC championships in 2017 and 2022, and his offense has finished in the top 30 numerous times. Michigan State could look to get a MAC coach, but honestly, I think they should reach a little bit higher. Jason Candle should be a fallback option for them, not the first option. The next name on this list is going to be Pat Narduzzi. Now, Pitt may not be off to a great start this year, but you got to look back at the last 2 years. He won 20 games between 2021 and 2022. Michigan State fans should also be very familiar with him because he was the defensive coordinator from 2007 to 2014. He was instrumental in creating the no-fly zone, which Michigan State's defensive backs were known by because of how stout the passing defense was. Pat Narduzzi makes about $6 million. They can definitely afford to give him a raise, but the question is, does Pat Narduzzi actually make Michigan State much better? This feels like it could be a safe option if he were to be interested in the job. Now, Brian Hartline here is a very interesting candidate. He's one of the hot commodities in college football. Everybody knows him for his recruiting and his development of wide receivers, and surely somebody is going to be interested in him as a head coach. He interviewed for the Cincinnati job last year, and then he was promoted to offensive coordinator for Ohio State. He has continued to develop some of the best wide receivers in the country, and now as offensive coordinator, he's just going to be even more intriguing. He has yet to call plays, and he really hasn't gotten his hand on the offense yet because Ryan Day still has control. But we've seen guys that have been position coaches go on to be successful head coaches. Guys like Dabo Sweeney and Urban Meyer are 2, for example. The biggest question for Brian Hartline is, does he want to be an NFL head coach? There's a lot of rumors in this world that he doesn't want to be a college head coach and that he wants to make his way to the NFL one day. The next guy we have on this list is Mike Elko. He's the head coach at Duke, and Duke has been phenomenal over the past year and a half. Elko came in and immediately turned Duke into a contender, winning 9 games in his first season. They're off to a 4-0 start, including a win over Clemson in the first week of the year. Now, Elko did sign an extension before the year through 2029, but that doesn't mean that Michigan State can't buy him out. We actually don't know what his salary is because Duke is a private university, so they don't have to disclose his salary. If Michigan State were to lure him away, it would probably be in the $7 to $9 million per year range, which we've seen they can afford because that's what they were going to offer Mel Tucker on a yearly basis for the next decade or so. Mike Elko is a very intriguing option and somebody that they really should look at pretty hard as the season gets going. A guy I think they need to look harder at is the offensive coordinator for Colorado. No, we're at Colorado, but we're not talking about Coach Prime. We're talking about Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis is the former head coach at Kent State who voluntarily stepped down to be the offensive coordinator for Coach Prime. We've seen him have success. Now, granted, they didn't have a great game against Oregon, but that doesn't mean you can't see the success on the field. He's helped create an incredible offense. The problem for Colorado is just they don't have great offensive linemen. They don't have the guys that can compete at the high level with the teams like Oregon, and eventually it'll be USC and Utah. At Michigan State, he'll have a better offensive line coming into it, and it's also a very different style of play. Sean Lewis coached in the MAC for 5 years and was one of the best offensive-minded coaches in the conference. This is a guy that is familiar with the recruiting territory and could come in and add a spark to the program. The final guy on this list is Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb is the current offensive coordinator at Washington and is clearly orchestrating one of the best offenses in the country. Michael Penix is probably the Heisman favorite as of right now, and then he's got a receiving core that can match just about anybody in the country. They're throwing the ball around, they're scoring 50 points a game, and they're a fun team to watch. Now, Grubb really doesn't have any connections to the Midwest. You really don't see a connection to Michigan State. He had a brief coaching stint at Eastern Michigan for like a year or two, but this would be a huge hire for Michigan State because you're bringing in a guy who has helped create some of the best offenses. He spent time at Fresno State before this and helped coach Jake Haener to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, even though it was a group of 5 team. Michigan State has one shot at this. With the conference changing, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington coming into the conference next year, they need to have a home run hire here. If they don't hit it, they're going to fall to the bottom, and it's going to be very hard to paddle up to the top. Mike Elko, to me, makes the most sense. I think he's somebody that can help build the program and have the longevity. But I also think guys like Ryan Grubb and Sean Lewis are other phenomenal candidates. If you like college football content, hit that follow button. Make sure to visit thewalkonredshirts.com and tell me who you think Michigan State should be hiring this year.